Greetings. My name is Michael Miller, and this is a Michael Miller Pilates YouTube live broadcast out to my licensed affiliates and Cornu course students around the world. Again, this was meant to be a Facebook Live thing, and in the live mode with the camera running, tilting it to one side caused the camera to go black. And I could never get it back. And rather than rebooting or moving on or being bogged down with technical issues, when I prepare to go live, I'm ready to go live, and I would just as soon be able to switch to an alternative. BV Encoder, Big V Encoder, is the app that feeds directly into my YouTube, and hopefully that's where this is going now, where I will forward it to Facebook with the titles that I had in mind for writing down before I started broadcasting. I got 4 of them today. Number 1, Joe promises uniform development. Joseph Pilates. When I talk about Joe, I'm talking about the man, Joseph Hubertus Pilates, right? When he says contrology develops the body uniformly, that's the very next paragraph after he defines his method as contrology is complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit. So in his writings, his statement that contrology develops the body uniformly, I take as a promise, like a wedding ring, or as a sign language, a promise. And so in my title, number 1 is Joseph promises uniform development. And Joseph instructs lock knees and straight toes, pointed feet. Lock knees, pointed feet. Throughout his mat instructions, it's frequently lock knees and pointed feet. So I put those two comments out there for you to evaluate on your own. You know, Joe says uniform development. That's the result. And he also says lock knees, pointed feet in many of his exercises. So to me, my number two comment is that uniform development lies beyond lock knees and pointed toes. So, as I've taught often, whenever you have two conflicting approaches or views or ways to teach or what to pick next, but you got two things to evaluate that seem to be in conflict, I always pull the bow, the target, and aim for what Joe called his method. Control. He called it contrology, right? Return to life through contrology. And so, to get the uniform development that Joe promises, if you really want to go all the way for a whole development, then to me, you have to get into Cornu tension to get to the most uniform engagement you can make with your body. I know that sounds absolutist. It's just my point of view. Because to me, in my experience, locked knees and pointed toes is different from unlocked knees and metatarsals as an endpoint of tension. So you let go of the knee as an endpoint of tension and you go to metatarsals. Somewhere along the line in your performance of Pilates, in exercises, for me, my point of view, that even state lock knees, pointed feet, if you have the ability to unlock your knees and have an endpoint at the metatarsals that maintains the line, that's a reason to give up and go beyond the lock knee, pointed foot instruction for the purpose of getting more uniform usage, right? Because the more uniformly engaged you are, not only the more developed you get, but the faster that that happens. So, number 2 was uniform development lies beyond lock knees and pointed toes, because it all depends on if you agree with the statement that it takes uniform usage to get uniform development. And if you go along with that, I mean, then it's just hook, line, and sinker for the hips are a grip at the hip, and in establishing rotational control at that axis. It only follows that the axis of the shoulders is oppositional rotation to create tension and stability then between the two, and that continues between ears and shoulders. And to my point, if it goes that far, it has to go through the knees, the ankles, and the metatarsals. And then you can have a pointed foot as long as there's endpoint of tension at the metatarsals. If you sacrifice, in my opinion, if you sacrifice an endpoint of tension at the metatarsals for the sake of a pointed foot, a curled over foot, where the whole foot is making a grip, it's a different feeling. There you go, right? And so I suggest that you, as you grow in your work or in your perfection already established as a Pilates practitioner, and therefore probably instructor, in your own sensation, feel the difference, know the difference between a pointed foot, locked knees, and a soft knee endpoint at the metatarsals. Those are two different feelings, and I would suggest that the one with the soft knee and the endpoint at the metatarsals allows you to distribute more of your overall load through more of your overall body in doing so. So I recognize how extreme it is for me to say, but I'm only saying within Michael Miller Pilates, within the view of the ideal of Joe's original work, when you take to heart whole body effort, everybody talks about whole body. If you're serious about whole body, I came to the conclusion that Cornu tension is required to get uniform usage as optimally as you can. And if that gives you the most uniform usage in your body, I say you certainly want to do that in performing the exercises to achieve the most uniform development possible. And so number 4, the last of my 4 items today, my 4 titles, I tell you to look toward Joe's teaser. It's a picture of Joe doing the teaser where he's sitting on the long end of a big wooden barrel. So it's not a Pilates equipment barrel. I think that's part of the amusement in the photo that's being taken. But Joe is sitting on the round end of a tall barrel that might hold a lot of beer or something else, but big one, big pedestal. And Joe is sitting on that barrel doing the teaser. And to me, in my perception of Joe, it's a picture where it's very late in his life. White hair, right? Just his look at later in life rather than younger. And that in that picture of Joe late in life doing the teaser for a photo, his feet are in metatarsals with unlocked knees. His toes are pulled back, and there's a pressure. There's a creation of the endpoint of tension at his metatarsals. That's how I would say that. So here it is, Joe, late in life, doing a teaser, and he's not locked knees, pointed toes. He's endpoint at metatarsals. And, I've always heard about Joe teaching different people differently at different times in his life, which happens for all of us. And just in that photo, for me, I'm offering up to you as a subject of this broadcast that locked knees and pointed feet give way to endpoints at metatarsals. And that's because of the desired effect of the uniform usage you get when you're fully engaged in Cornu tension, ears to metatarsals. Many other influences have come into Pilates and wanted to make the choreography an expression that belongs more within the world they brought than in the world of Pilates that exists in its own, of its own. And so for me, in my view of Pilates, and where it comes from, you really want to use metatarsals and unlock your knees to get uniform engagement. And the sooner, at least as an instructor, you recognize the difference between locked knees and pointed feet versus unlocked knees and engagement at metatarsals, you have to be able to do that. And before you can do that, you have to accomplish locked knees and pointed feet. Maybe. But letting go of locked knees and pointed feet and not being able to establish the endpoint at the metatarsals takes you back to locked knees, pointed feet. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a degree of control. So when you're looking for control, you're aiming for control. Joe's instructions never fail because they're his instructions. But if you take his target to heart of uniform development, his promise, the outcome, the effect you want, to heart, and you agree that uniform engagement, meaning whole body, is the key to getting whole development, then I beg you to, not beg you, I offer as part of this discussion about the difference between these two means of engagement, that you look to the target that we're after and where that takes you, and as evidence to where it may have even taken Joe, is that later in life he's doing a teaser and he has endpoint at metatarsals. You know, and so that's all I really need to establish my point classically, that there Joe is doing the teaser with a distinct endpoint at metatarsals. There's not only one way to do things, there's two, and I encourage you to not only know both ways, but make sure your students know both ways. And if they choose to ignore you, they at least are aware of the alternative. As an instructor, that's about all you can do, right? So, thank you for listening. If you want to get it out there, I encourage you to do so. Just remember your audience and try to be of value for the time spent, right? Because live can't live forever. Read between the lines, see behind the curtain, add two and two, direct your own thinking, and Geist.